Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me once again for a recap of my placement. So I finished my first day, got a lot done today. The way that I'm working is I'm doing 7 hours, I'm 9 till 4, so it means that I can come back here, now it is 4:30, and I can do the videos, so hooray. So let's just first of all recap the day, and whenever anything relevant comes up that I feel like I should reflect on, I will do. And again, if you have any questions about anything I talk about here, want to combat what I say, if you want to, I don't know, interact in any way, feel free, there is a comment section down below. Okay, so day one, arrival, obviously. First thing that happens is I sign in at the front door, security thing, and then I sign out when I leave. Circle time / register. Now this is what happened first of all. The children all come in, they were all in already because the nursery does open at 8:30, and then they don't do the register till 9 because that half an hour gap is to make sure everyone's here. That makes sense. The reason I'm 9 till 4 is I'm kind of coinciding with school hours. If I was to come in earlier and later, I think it would be out with not so much the necessity of the placement, not that I'm not doing it out of laziness, but I think more along the lines of because there's a set amount of time for placement, to a set amount of hours, sorry, I don't want to like overdo that by too much. I already am by staying till 4, so I wouldn't want to do that too much. Anyway, once all the children were in, I was in, the children all sat in the circle, and what happens is they get a register taken, as I mentioned, and they sing the hello song, or the good morning song. I will get back to you with that one. This was good. I like the use of this. It kind of warmed the children up. Some of them might still be a little bit sleepy. It is 9, I mean they're very young children, so most of them were pretty switched on this early in the morning, but it was a good sort of shaking up activity. I felt like it was really effectively used for that and obviously loosened off their vocal cords and stuff for, talking, and that's really good. That sort of broke the ice as well. After the song was sang, I was introduced to the group. I was asked what I was it was kind of an embarrassing start, I must admit. I was asked, kind of put on the spot by one of the members of staff, saying, Ewan, why don't you tell us what you're here to do? And for whatever reason, I know fine well I'm here to study the managerial aspects of the nursery and to study language development, as well as be an extra pair of hands whenever I'm needed. Trying to process that in my brain to speak to a bunch of 2, 3 and 4 year olds, it didn't go well. I kind of slipped over my words and I just says I'm here just to play, and that kind of got a laugh from some of the staff, and slightly embarrassing. That's something I feel like I should work on for the future, is to obviously have a little think about how to make the language more child friendly, so that they would understand. Okie dokie. The children went on to discuss their weekend, what happened. People were selected to speak. They couldn't go through everyone because there was 34 children in today, and that's an awful lot of children, so trying to get through 34 of them would have been a bit difficult. So certain ones were selected just by who was sitting the nicest, hands up, that's the selection process. Absolutely fine. I agree with that. It means that a lot of people will get a chance, and then those who didn't get a chance will know why they didn't get a chance. One of the children, when they were doing their show and tell type thing, they they went to Edinburgh for the weekend to go watch Scotland play rugby at Murrayfield, and then they saw Princess Anne, so they printed off a picture of Princess Anne and showed it to everyone, that this is Princess Anne, is this what you think a princess would look like? Kind of got a bit of a laugh, which is, yeah, everyone just thinks Disney princesses, I guess. But that was nice. It was nice to see what the children thought, because they were like, oh, some of them were like, she's not a princess, and then we were like, well, yeah, she really is. And that was interesting to get a child's take on that. After the circle time here, sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with my own notes here. After the circle time show and tell segment that we had there, I went through with the nursery manager. I'm just going to leave everyone nameless, just not even for legal reasons. I think it would be okay to mention some names, but I don't want any ramifications from that, so I'll just refer to everyone by their title, or if I'm referring to children in specific, I'll call them child and then a letter. That should make things easier. The rules and regulations of the nursery were explained to me by the nursery manager. And what I will do is, I'll come back to that. I have another section of key events that happened. This is just the daily running. After everything was explained to me, some busy paperwork was done between me and the nursery manager, just telling her this is what's my emergency contacts, you know, the basic jargon for starting a new position. So that was all done. And free play plus snack/breakfast time occurred between 9 and 11. So the children basically had all of their activities set up and they were to go around and basically just do what they felt they wanted to do, and I thought that was really good. They had the choice of what they wanted to do. Activities were set up, you know, likes of Legos and sort of story time corners. There was a house, you know, roles of the house and stuff, and that was really good. I felt that it got the children talking to each other a lot. There was a lot of playing with each other, which was good. No one seemed to be left out. I didn't notice anything like that happening. Maybe that's something I'll notice later on in the placement, but for the time being, everyone seemed to be involved, and it did get them talking a lot, which I thought was really good. So while this was happening, I essentially abandoned my plan for the day, and I have a good reason for that. My plan for the day was to follow around the nursery manager and find out basically everything that happens within the nursery running, how it's run, all the things that I mentioned in the previous video. The reason that I abandoned this is I no longer felt it relevant once I got inside. To the actual nature of the placement, I had asked the manager about all of the things that she says, and I got all the information I needed. I knew the opening times, and basically all of that within the space of maybe half an hour. So after that, she was really just dealing with phone calls from parents, dealing with phone calls from external agencies, doing paperwork, you know, just basic office busy work. And I really felt that I would be better served speaking to the other members of staff and even just getting involved with the children on a personal level as well as an academic level, and just seeing what they were doing. I felt there was a lot more to be gained with that, because it was me focusing on how they were interacting with resources, and that was pretty spot on. That really did speak to me, and that was brilliant. I felt like there was a lot more I could have got from that, and that did happen. From after 11 o'clock till 12 o'clock, I had found out that there were two children, which I will come back to later on most likely, but two children who don't speak English as a first language. So right away, there was like the spark went off in my brain. I was like, brilliant, I'm trying to look at language development here, and two children don't speak English as a first language. That's going to be perfect to see that barrier to learning in action. So I decided to, at 11 o'clock they went into groups. The nursery children are all split up into groups, and one of the groups has one of the children in it who doesn't speak English as a first language. So I spoke to the nursery manager. She said, go with this group for a week and let me know how you get on. Just shadow them, find out how she's coping with, you know, language in general, and how she copes with the activities and following instructions. So that's been really useful. I have some notes on that later on. We will come back to that. What the activity was was the children were to make Play-Doh. So basically, instead of having all 6 of the children or so, however many there were, making Play-Doh individually, there was a massive bowl in the middle. They added the ingredients and then stirred it, and they all had a chance to do each of these things. So it sounds pretty basic on paper, but the way that it was carried out was really quite interesting, I have to say. The group leader, who is a member of staff of course, she had the right idea. She was actually a very skilled professional, I feel, it was a pleasure to actually work with her this morning, sorry, because she knew exactly what she was doing and she knew exactly what she wanted the children to get out of it. On the basic layer, if you're just going to scratch the surface, yes, the children now know the ingredients of Play-Doh and how to stir it up, and then they played with it, and that's great. But if you dig deeper, the way that she was sort of questioning the children throughout and asking them to use like different words to describe things. So, for example, she brought out the bag of flour. That was the first ingredient. So she showed them the bag of flour, and they're like, "What is this?" The children can't really read, so she didn't have to hide the label or anything like that. A couple of children said salt, a couple of children said sugar, and then she was like, "Oh, but what? Sugar is really sweet, and this isn't sweet, and oh, salt's really good. We might come back to that later on. It's something white and powdery, but it's not like that." And then eventually the children would be like, "Oh, it's flour," and it's like, "Yeah, what else do you use flour in? To bake a cake, how could you describe flour?" It's like, "Oh, it's smoky," and just really encouraging them to use different words, almost like the thesaurus effect, I would say. I mean, they could have said it's white, and that would have been it in some cases, you know, because they're not wrong. But flour is white, but to say it's white, and then oh, it's powdery, and oh, there's smoke coming off of the bag, really felt like they were really enhancing their language there by just using different words as opposed to just the same basic words they would always use. So that was really interesting. I also noticed that the professional who was taking the group was very skilled at managing behaviour. Now she has two boys in her group whose behaviour is, for lack of a better word, less than desirable. They are easily distracted by each other, might add. They're very good friends, so it's basic behaviour management 101. It's really bad for them to be together, but you don't want to separate them because they do work well together when they are pardon me, when they are working on the task, but when they're not, they can be a handful. Now she did deal with their behaviour very well. Whenever they started acting up, they were separated, and that made them fairly upset. To the point where they would be happy to work together without talking. But it's the kind of thing that's going to need constant reinforcement, it has to be said. And after discussing that with her, she did say you need to always keep an eye on them because they're either best friends or worst enemies, and when either of them is too excited, the other one will follow suit with whatever it may be. Okie dokie. After this we had lunch. Lunchtime procedure is fairly standard. Every member of staff who's in the work area has to wear an apron, a disposable plastic apron, which I can understand completely. You don't want germs and stuff falling on your shirt and everything. It is a nursery, it's going to be messy, it's for your protection as well as the children's protection. All the tables were wiped before with disinfectant spray and cloths. And that happened at least 3 times during the day, possibly more that I was not aware of, but from what I observed it was at least 3 times, and I think that really resonated well with me. I like the fact that they kept the nursery so clean, because obviously it's a big issue for children spreading germs, and I just didn't expect it to be as many times, if you understand. I feel like it was really well upkept, especially for the very small member of staff that there are. There was only 5 or 6 members of staff in today, and apparently that's almost the entire body of staff. There are no sort of cleaners or janitors. They're basically jack of all trades all the time, wearers of many hats, if you will. Okay, so after lunch I took my lunch where I was in the staff room and I interacted with some of the staff. Just general chit chat, conversation, that kind of thing is important, I feel, because if I don't get along with them, then it's just going to be a really difficult placement for everyone. So I made an effort to interact with them, engage with them, talk to them about their lives out with the nursery, because I can imagine, from being a person who's had jobs before, people who only talk about work to each other, the conversation tends to go stale very quickly. So ask them about their personal life, not too intrusive of course, and just keeping up general conversation I felt really did help. After lunch we had stories / nap time. Sorry about that, the phone's going crazy. So what happens is, because there is such a spread of ages, well, when I say such a spread, there's the ages from 2 to 5 in the nursery just now. Sometimes there can be sometimes there can be younger children there, but unfortunately there was pardon me, none in this term / semester. So some of the 2-year-olds, some of the older ones as well, I believe, when this happens, can go and sleep in a quiet room for a while. This nap time can be really useful for later on in the afternoon, because they can be better engaged much later on, as opposed to just being hyperactive or too crazy from lunch, or maybe too tired to continue. You don't want them going home to their mum and dad absolutely completely shattered and out of it, because they still have to have dinner, etc. What have we got here? Yeah, when this is happening, it was a nursery manager that came out actually to do this. She, as much as she has a managerial position, is also a member of staff just as much as anyone else is. So she also takes some activities with the children, which I feel is really good. She sat for a good while, I think it was a good 45 minutes or so, just reading stories to the children who were awake. Now that was really good. This is where we could really see the language development aspect really coming through. The stories were all, you know, your basic storybooks like your Elmer the Elephant and just picture books with minimal words, which I thought was really good, because the way that she read to them, it was like inclusive reading. There's probably a better word for it than that. But she would read a page and she would say, now what's happened here, what's going on in the picture. A child would say, it's sunny, and it's like, oh, what does the sun do? It shines. How does it shine? It shines brightly. Just encouraging them to use more words, as opposed to just, it's hot. It's very hot. It's incredibly hot. It's very warm. You know, just building on their vocabulary. So she did this with like 3 or 4 books until it was time at 12:45, I believe, to go outside. Now, almost all of the children came outside, but of course it's not really a requirement, I believe. Actually, no, that's not true. Sorry, I'm getting my times mixed up here. Some of the children can go outside earlier on, but there's a compulsory time. I think it's I believe it's between this time, between 12:45 and 1:45, that the children will go outside for a massive play. Now, their play area I wouldn't say it's less than desirable, because the children did manage to get a lot done there, and they were having a lot of fun out there. But it's kind of built on an incline. It's like on a hill, so it's really sort of bumpy as well. It's not ideal. It's not like a flat surface, but it is covered in astroturf / tarmacy material, so that if any falls do occur, which many actually did, they weren't anything serious. The children weren't really that hurt at all. But in terms of, for, you know, rolling a ball or drawing on the tarmac or whatever the material is with chalk and stuff, it was really difficult, because it's just kind of not a great surface, if you understand. No ball games could really happen, because the ball would just kind of roll down the hill. So I did notice that, but during the outside play I did notice that a lot of there weren't really a lot of friendship groups. Now, I know that was probably not going to be a huge thing in nursery, but I know that in primary school that is a big issue, is that some friendship groups don't mix with others, and then that makes children not like each other. But then that kind of I think doesn't come into fruition until that age, so that was good to notice that that's not a thing. Now, around 1:45 we came back inside, and everyone started to get ready to, you know, calm down for a start. So there was 15 minutes of just downtime, in which nothing very much happened. But today was one of the children's birthdays. So we had a birthday celebration. So I don't know if that was kind of just on the fly or if that was planned. That was maybe a question I should have asked. But the child's birthday was that day, and her dad brought in cake and some juice for the children. Now, I believe the cake was cleared with all the parents, but the juice really wasn't. So the way that the nursery dealt with that kind of problem, I guess if you could call it that, is that they put the juice at the entrance of the nursery, and then when the parents came in, they would say, "Oh look, there's been a birthday, there's some juice there. We didn't want to just give it to your child in case, you know, e-numbers and all of that fun stuff. And if you want to take it, you're more than welcome to." So I felt that was really well dealt with, especially when it was kind of just off the cuff, if you will. I don't think that was something that they expected, but there you go. So the children were all able to have some cake and some sandwiches, and that was really, really nice. I think the little girl whose birthday it was really enjoyed herself, and that is a big thing. Now, the way that they dealt with the birthday is that they had everyone in a circle, and then there was a choice of games. But the girl whose birthday it was, she decided we'll play the princess game, the frog game. Basically all these games were fairly similar. They were different enough for the children to be engaged with them, but they were all pretty much the same thing. They involved having a set amount of people in the middle, sing a song, everyone sort of clap and sing the song, and then you would say one flew away, and then one of the children would sit down, then the second would sit down, the third would sit down. You know, it's like 10 green bottles, if you imagine the 10 green bottles sitting on a wall, and then one falls off, and then the child would sit down. Really well done, actually. All the children were engaged because every child was singing, so they all had actively something to do. But the children who were in the middle were really enjoying themselves because obviously all the attention was on them, and I felt that was really well handled. The birthday celebration then led to more games of that nature, I believe, and then at 2:30, it was only half an hour that this happened, it was just a massive free play. So the children once again could just decide what it was they wanted to do. This time the activities that were set out were a little bit less prescriptive than the first time. By that I mean the children had a lot more sort of free roam with what it was they wanted to do. This basically entailed there was a storybook corner, there was a computer suite where basically there's only one computer, but we'll call it the computer suite anyway, where the children could go on BBC, it wasn't BBC Bite Size, it was CBeebies website, so they could play the educational games on that, which was fine. There was a story corner where children who could read could try and read, but there was also a member of staff that was situated there to read to the children. There was a corner where cake was being given out, and also sandwiches, so children could have some of that from like the leftovers and such. There was a massive Lego corner where lots of children were making Lego, and the things that they made at the end were allowed to be taken a picture of, and then they would show their mum and dad, then they would break it up and put it away. So it was good. That was good for parent interactivity, I believe, because they could actively show the parents what they had done that day. There was a corner set up for dressing up, which was cool because that was a very poor choice of words, cool. But it was really really interesting to see. The nursery does not imply gender roles, which is absolutely fine. I mean, this is the 21st century. I think that's a really good idea. But you know, that you would have like maybe the girls wearing like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles costume, and like maybe boys wearing the Cinderella dresses and stuff, and it was really good fun. Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves, so that was really interesting to see. That was something I didn't even consider. I'm very open-minded when it comes to things like that, so I didn't even consider that maybe a problem. But after discussing with the manager, it says that some parents might actually find that a problem, that their sons are doing that or their daughters are doing that because they believe that that's not the way that it should be done. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, you know, they're just children. If nothing like that should really affect whether or not they're having fun is what's important. Whether or not they're learning something from it is, I believe, more important than just petty gender roles. But again, that's my opinion entirely, so everyone's entitled to their own. where did we get to? Yep, so it was just free play to the end, and then there was the dress-up corner. So what I liked about the dress-up corner was there was a lot of role play happening, so a lot of language being used there. They were pretending to be these characters, and it was good to see the members of staff interacting. It was like, oh, who are you? And there's just like, I'm Cinderella. It's like, oh, where are you going? Oh, I'm off to the ball. Did you lose something? Yeah, my slipper. What was it made of? Glass. You know, just constant questioning, I think, was key. And I think that was really good. That was really well done as well. Okay. And that was almost the end of my day. So we'll just quickly jump into here. Some of the important information that I received today. And that will be beneficial for me to reflect on, I believe. Okay, so first of all, as I've mentioned already, there was no gender roles enforced. So they wouldn't say to a boy who was in the kitchen pretending to cook, oh, you can't do that because you're a man and you should be doing this. But on the flip side of that, they wouldn't go up to a girl who was doing the same thing and say, you can't do that because that's a gender stereotype. The children are just free to do whatever it is that they choose. If the boys want to, you know, push around the buggies and things like that, that's fine. If the girls want to wear the builders' hats and the coat, that's fine. So the children are free to do what they want, and I really like that. I think that's it's a sign that society is growing up, and I like that a lot. Information that I found about myself. As a visiting student, because of the way the nursery operates, I must be supervised at all times. I'm not allowed to be alone with the children. Now, I knew that would be a thing, so that's absolutely fine. I'm happy enough with that. I have to sign in every single day. I'm not allowed to take any pictures whatsoever because of, you know, child safety. I'm not allowed to change the nappies of the younger children, but that's fine. I didn't even consider that would be something that would happen in a nursery, but once I got there it made a lot of sense that that would be a thing that would happen. But I don't have to do that. I'm not allowed to have my phone out on the nursery floor because it has a camera, and again that can just be chalked up to child safety. I'm not allowed to answer the door. Now, the way the nursery works, it's a very, very secure nursery, and that is, I think, is brilliant. It's a really good system they have. They have a bolted gate, so it's high enough that the children can't get out, but the adults can get in. Now, the front door, I think at all times is locked, and there's a doorbell. So you would go up to the doorbell, you would answer the door, and you would say, this is a child's parent, this is something like that. But if you don't, if no one in the nursery knows the person who's trying to get in, they physically can't get in unless it's been arranged prior to this. Now, that's really good. That lets me know that the nursery is a very safe environment and that they take their child safety very, very seriously. Other notes here that we have. In terms of my study of language development, I was having a discussion with some of the members of staff, and they all mentioned that there used to be a visiting specialist, a visiting language development specialist. Unfortunately, I've missed the boat with this one. She does not come anymore, which is very unfortunate. But the way that she would operate is that she would pick a word, and that would be the word of the week. And the way that would work is, say the word was enormous. She would come in every week and read the children a book that has that word a lot, and it's like enormous, and then she would make sure that the children knew what that meant, and then just kind of drilling in that word and using it in lots of contexts and finding out what else it means. Like enormous, what does that mean? It means big, it means huge. That proved to her to show results that children were beginning to take it on board. Now, as I say, I'm fairly new to the nursery. I haven't seen how children were before my arrival, but upon my arrival I noticed that every single child in there can, well, everyone that I've interacted with today, should I say, because I can't make that assumption yet, that I've interacted with today can hold a conversation, and that includes the ones that are fairly young, you know, 3, 2 and a bit. I think that's really impressive. The language standard is so high, And even with children whose language is not English, first language, sorry, is not English, they can still hold a good conversation. They know what you're talking about, and I think that's really good. Some very, very well-developed children. I noticed, this was just a kind of key thing that I noted down to relate back to some of the reading that I've been doing, that one of the children in the class, well, in the nursery, she said, "I goed to the zoo." Now, after reading, I can't remember the sources now, it's in my folder, but after reading up on language development, something to dispute someone's theory did say that children make these links themselves when developing language. So the theory stated that children learn language exclusively through repetition, through recreating things that they've heard adults or older children say. Now, to dispute that, this is what it says. An adult would never say "I goed" or "I wented" to the... they would never use language like that to the children, so they must be making those links in their head themselves. So I picked up on that, and I will make a small document up tonight explaining what I mean by that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there was 2 children in the class who don't speak English as a first language. One speaks Spanish as a first language, and the other one speaks Italian as a first language. After talking to the members of staff in depth about both these children, he said that both of them do struggle with English. Now, these are only 2 of the children that speak English as a second language. I believe there may be more. I will come back to you with that. But these 2 children do kind of struggle, but a lot of that is to do with being quiet than being competent with the language. It's been speculated. One of the children who I spoke to today, she originally just ignored what I said when I spoke to her. So at first I kind of thought, oh, she's just sort of being she's being kind of shy, and that was the end of it. But when I found out that it was because English is not her first language, I definitely just sat down and tried to ask her, not open-ended question, but kind of talk to her without questioning, so that she was actively listening, and if she felt like she needed to respond, she could. And by the end of the day, she was saying my name, and she was trying to communicate, but she used so few words that I think I need a little bit more time to sort of interact with her to see if I can, notice a difference, so I can sort of gauge what her level of language is at. Now, the way that the staff explained it to me is that her understanding of language is fairly high, and the way to ensure that this keeps up is to really gesture in front of her. So instead of saying, "Could you pass me the pen?" you would point to it and you'd go, "Could you pass me the pen? See, the pen is there. This is the pen." Just repeat what it is you want her to understand, and that really apparently works quite well for her. And in order to help her as well, she has a key ring. Now, I will take a picture of this key ring in the nursery the next time that I'm there, which is tomorrow, and I will show that in my folder as well. But basically, it has different segments on it in which there are basic sort of words like toilet and playground and lunch and things like that, so that if she's struggling to communicate, the child can go and get this keyring and then point to it on the wheel, the keyring, and be like, "This is what I mean," and then that helps everyone involved. So yeah, that was really interesting to see that. Now, what else do we have here? Sorry, let me just double check. So in general, children were very well behaved. There was instances where there were people shouting and screaming, but of course it's a nursery. You expect the language, the volume to be very high. However, there was never a point where it became uncontrollable. And whenever the members of staff were like, "Right, everyone quiet up," maybe there'd still be a bit of hustle, but by about the third time of asking, there was a point where there was absolute silence, and I didn't think that was possible in a nursery. But the staff were all fairly switched on, and they dealt with everything really well. The way that the staff kind of deal with the overcrowding, as you would say, I wouldn't say it's overcrowded. That there was never, I never felt like there wasn't enough room to move, but there was 30 odd children to quite a few, to not a very huge member of staff. And the way that it was dealt with is that staff were sort of situated in rooms. So one member of staff would be situated in the technology / quiet / reading room, because the nursery is fairly small. One member of staff would be put there, and then maybe 3 or 4 would be in the main room, and then 1 or 2 would be outside, so that at all times there was always at least one member of staff there to deal with whatever happened. What I did find out today was quite a big, I wouldn't say an issue, but it was something I didn't expect, is that the children really took to me straight away. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm the only male, male practitioner, I believe, that was there. I wouldn't call myself a practitioner, but male member of staff that was there. I don't know if that was the reason that they took to me so well, or that it's maybe absence of a father figure. I don't want to speculate. These are just things that I've heard in passing before that can often attribute to this. But what this meant was that a lot of children were very, I wouldn't say clingy, because that sounds negative, but they were very affectionate, shall we say. And that was to all members of staff. Now, at first that was a bit of an issue for me. I didn't really know what to do. When we were outside, there was maybe 4 or 5 different children who came up and just started like holding my hand and saying, take us in, when we were all going in. Now, originally I was just saying, no, this is not okay, sort of thing, just putting the hands down and just left it at that, but it sort of persisted and it continued. So when it did come to taking them inside, I took them in by the hands, and then I let them go, and I said, you need to go and take your jacket off. So they all went and did that, and then I went and spoke to the manager. I said, look, this is something that I don't know what the sort of rules and regulations are from here, because I know it's different in different environments. And she told me that because you're supervised at all time, if children are being affectionate towards you, if you're if they need to hold hands and stuff like that, and they want to give you a hug and stuff, they will do that whether you embrace it or not. You really don't have a lot of control here. You can reinforce them and say that, oh no, this is not okay, and things like that, but to be honest, all of the members of staff here are okay with that, and the parents seem to be okay with that as well. And because you're a male, that shouldn't make a difference, because gender equality sort of thing. So at first I wasn't very comfortable with the situation, but as the day went on, it became a little more normal. There were more children taking my hand. There were more children running up to me and just like kind of just cuddling my leg, because that's as far up to me as they come. And I just had to, I just went with it. I didn't understand, I didn't think there would be a problem with that, so that's really good. Now, other things that we spoke about today. Each child, this was something that the nursery does on its own, each child has a file. Now, within this file they have evidence of their work, as well as updated of the Shinari indicators from Girthvec, keeping in touch with if they're being cared for, etc. This file is really useful. It has information on the child's work evidence, like I've said before, the Shinari indicators, and references to the curriculum for excellence at a nursery level. So I felt that was really useful. It was all there, compiled for the child. The way that not even behaviour management, the way that achievements were noted and taken care of in the nursery, there are WOW vouchers. Now, I have one of these in my folder as well, just for evidence. But basically what happens is the children, the staff at the nursery have the WOW vouchers, but so do the parents. And basically it's like your gold star. whenever a child does is well behaved, or they've learned something new, or they've tried really hard at something, they can be given one of these vouchers, and these vouchers will get written on. The children love it. The children are really taken to it, and they really enjoy having these vouchers and being given these vouchers. So once they get them, they give them back to the staff, and they get stuck on the wall, and then everyone can see it. And I think that's really, really quite well done. It's a nice way to deal with good behaviour, and a good way to set example. A lot of the children really want these vouchers. When I remember a staff was writing one out today, there was a crowd around her asking, who's it going to, who's it going to? They were really excited to see who would get it. Now, the youngest children, the 2-year-olds, have a diary. Now, this diary is just an open dialogue between the nursery and the parents, because obviously, being 2, language isn't fully there yet. Things can get lost in translation. So what a lot would happen would be that the nursery would write in, they would take a picture and they would stick it in, and then they would send it to the parents home with the child, saying, this is what the child has done, can you just sign here to confirm that you've read it? And then some of the parents would feed back in the diary as well. So that was really good. All the planning kind of comes from the children. Now, this is very, very up to the Curriculum for Excellence's standards, in my opinion anyway. The learning is all completely child-centred, like 100%. So what will happen is the members of staff will pay attention, they will listen to what the children's interests are, and then on a Wednesday afternoon there's a meeting that takes place, wherein all of the members of staff will congregate, and then they will come to a general consensus of what the children have been talking about, what they've been interested in the most during the week prior, and then they will plan activities based on this. So I believe that's really good. The members of staff work from 8:30 to 5:30. That is the full day of the nursery. It opens at 8:30, and then it closes at 5:30 once all the children have gone home. So that's really good. It's I can imagine it could be a very long day for members of staff, but members of staff are usually part-time. The ones that are full-time rarely work the 8:30 till 5:30 shifts, from what I've been led to believe. Just some closing notes now. There's wall displays up all around, as you would expect in like a classroom in a nursery. Just all the children's work, all displayed for adults to see when they come and pick their kids up, and that's really good. It's really well designed, really well spaced out. I had a look around everything today, but all the plans go up on the wall, and all the evidence of work goes on the wall. And the way that they kind of assess a child's understanding is, obviously they put the activity up on the wall, but they take a quote from each of the children. I thought this was a really good idea as well. They took a quote from the children saying, this is what I did, and it's describing what you can see, because there's a lot of time you give a child a piece of paper and he draws something, and they'll be like, oh, it's a dragon, when we all know it's not a dragon, it's lines and squiggles, but you can start to pick out where the similarities are, and where they're starting to see that this would be like the tail, and they've done a flip for the tail, things to that nature. But having the quote accompanying the picture or the piece of work, or just describing their experiences, I think is really, really helpful, especially today when they were making Play-Doh. The group leader, when carrying out this activity, she took a quote from each child, and I believe that she's going to publish that on Word, and then stick it to the wall next to the pictures that she's taken of them. And that's really great. That will go into the child's file as well, and it just lets you know how much they've engaged and how much they've enjoyed it, because a lot of the time some of the children could say, oh, this activity wasn't really that good, I didn't like it, or I made this dinosaur out of Play-Doh and it was really good. Just things like that, just direct quotes from them lets you really gauge their level of engagement. Okay, so that's the wall displays. By the end of the day, the children were swinging from the lights. That was to be expected, I believe. They get really, really quite hyper towards towards the end of the day. because I think it's because some of them know their parents are coming, they're getting to go home, but some of them actually get quite upset, which is something I didn't know. Some of the children don't want to leave, they're really happy at the nursery. I don't know if there's any underlying principles to that, but the children were really keen to just stay. And I believe that's probably because they're in an environment with all their friends and they're having a lot of fun all the time. But that's a good testament to the nursery. They're clearly doing something really, really right if the children don't want to leave at the end of the day when their mum and dads arrive. And I believe that's all that I have to say today. There's a back garden to the nursery, which was something I did not know about. And in this back garden, children can interact with nature a little bit better. There's an areas to dig, lots of plant sort of life, and there's a shed at the back, and that's really good. But last things before we go here, I took a quick sketch. Don't worry, I'm not applying to go on Art Attack. Just off the building in general, and this is where all the areas are. There's a window here, that's the main entrance, goes down a ramp. We have the main room where all the desks are situated. The staff room is also the nursery manager's office, as well as the it's just the base of operations really. The bathrooms are through this door here. This is the computer room / the room where all the children will sleep, and then the toilets are into the side here. And that's really all there is to the nursery. It's not a huge building at all, but I found today really, really useful. It's a really good start to the placement. I know this has been a very, very long video, almost kicking 50 minutes here, but unfortunately that's just the way it has to be until I can condense my notes a little bit better. But for the first day, I kind of expected this to drag on a little bit. So thank you for joining me, and feel free to join me tomorrow. Again, anything you want to question me on, anything you want to talk to me about, please feel free to just pop it down in the comments below, and I will answer that as quick as I can. Thank you so much.